Hello, beauties. Hello. Okay, here we go. Hello, soul sisters. Oh my goodness. Oh, it is nice to be it's nice to be here in this community doing a live stream because it has been a while since I've just hopped on to chat. It's been weeks. And more so than that, it's been months since I have felt as though I can share what has been the truth of my life and of my heart, not because not for any other reason than it just made sense not to be sharing it just yet until now. So so I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for this community. I'm really grateful for the sisterhood. I'm really grateful that there's platforms like Facebook, even though who knows if this is coming up in anybody's feed because of these weird algorithms. I know I am not seeing a lot of people that I would like to follow that I am following in my feeds. But all of that aside, I have had and am having some major, major changes in my life. And it's at the point where I can share because the people who are closest to me who need to know these things first are now in the know. So I can share that I am in the process of getting a divorce. And it's a journey. Wow. It is a journey. And what is so interesting is that the way the universe works for me and with me and on behalf of me is that before like when I'm meant to receive a signal of something, whether it's something upcoming in my life or something that I need to to pay more attention to, I start to get these signals, and you guys probably do too, that start off subtle and then they just kind of repeat and repeat and repeat. For example, when my mother was towards the end of her life, but did not look like she was towards the end of her life because she still was very full of vitality and she was very robust and she was strong and she was eating. And, there's no reason to think that she was actually towards the end. I started to see the word hospice all over the place, whether it was hospice trucks that would pass me on the roads, or whether it was I'd be reading a magazine and there would be an ad for hospice care services in the magazine that I never would have noticed. Or I had a conversation with a friend who was telling me all about hospice, that she was having her father receive care from hospice. And so it was like this repetitive thing. And because I pay attention to these signs and signals of the universe, I was like, what is this about hospice? This was years ago. So I didn't actually consider it for my mother at the time because, like I said, she looked strong and healthy. She had dementia and it was significant, very advanced by then. But I wasn't thinking hospice. So you know what I did? I was like, okay, universe, I got your signals. I will go become a hospice volunteer. That's what my mind put together as like, this must be why I keep saying hospice, hospice, hospice. I was thinking, it's probably not a bad idea for me to go through the hospice training and learn about how to care for people in end of life, because that's always been an interest of mine, especially in this line of work in channeling. So I signed up to be a hospice volunteer. I don't know what I was thinking. I had very, very small children at the time. Plus, I had my mother with dementia who needed a lot of my support and care. So I really didn't have time to take the hospice training. And then it became clear to me very shortly after that why I had been seeing and hearing and resonating with hospice. It was because my mother needed hospice services. And when I finally got to that point of recognizing that, I was able to advocate for that, for her doctor to write a script for her to receive hospice services. Not even her doctor thought that she was ready for that. But it turns out literally just, I don't know, weeks later, a month later, I can't remember how long, but a short time after we got hospice involved, she was able to pass peacefully. So it was the right thing. So that is all to lay the background into my present day situation with my marriage. And to say that within the last like 9 months, maybe a little longer, but I have, been working with more and more and more women who are at various stages of divorce. So some of them are coming to me because they want to channel the higher self of their spouse, and hear, the deeper perspective, the soul perspective of what is going on for them, because they're kind of contemplating like whether or not to continue in the marriage. Or I'll have clients coming who are engaged in the process of divorce and want to channel the deep guidance and wisdom of where they're at there and get support, universal support from that aspect. Or or women are complete with their divorce and they are now in this next phase of their lives, and they want to have clarity on from their own soul's perspective, and maybe even some stuff that was unfinished from their partnership, from their marriage that has ended. So what I've noticed is that, and I even asked my guides, what's the deal? Why are you sending me so many women who are in the process of or completing the process of divorce? And it's not like it was a total shocker to me, because very rarely is it the kind of thing that's like, well, I don't know, maybe it does happen often that people are totally stunned and shocked by it. But I was not. So not shocked by our choice to go through this process. And that said, it's not something that I take lightly, and it's something that, over time I have given thought to and revisited, but really recommitted to the work and the investment of time and energy and love and resources and support to try to, to make things as healthy as they could possibly be. And it is at the point where a divorce now is in the best interest of our family. And so I'm not heavy-hearted in reporting this to you. And I when I share the news with people, I say I'm gonna tell you something that will sound like it's bad news, but it's not bad news. You get to have whatever reaction to it that you want. But I think oftentimes when we hear people share that they are in the process of divorce or that they are divorced, I know for me, I used to have this like, oh, like you would, like a response that you would have to when someone loses a family member to death. Um, like you say, I'd say, I'm sorry, or I'd feel like saying, I'm sorry. I don't do that anymore, I don't think. But it's this automatic response of feeling badly for somebody. And that comes from so much cultural conditioning, which is influenced sometimes by religious teachings, which is influenced by a belief system that, thank you, Melody. Thank you for that beautiful message. Which is influenced by us, this notion, which now to me is very false, which is this idea of a marriage is only, the success of a marriage can only be measured by its longevity. That's what I'm saying I no longer believe. I used to believe it. I used to be part of that, that conditioning, that cultural conditioning, or maybe, I don't know, that for me it was religious, but it's part of what kept me committed to the relationship, and also just the desire to have, to keep my family intact, and to do the best I could do to offer as much of myself as I had to give in order to make it work, right? In order to make the relationship, the marriage work, and to keep the family in the cohesion that I had come to value and cherish. And so it's not my story anymore that well, I should say it this way. I am not telling the story that my marriage has failed, because it hasn't. My marriage has been a wild success. I do not even know how many journals I could fill with the insights and the growth and the deepening of understanding and connection to myself, to spirit, to God, to souls, to my soul's work in this world. And I'm not giving credit to the marriage for doing that, because that was just my journey. That's about me, I feel, and me as a soul on this planet. But the marriage held a space for me to get to this place, to, in some ways, to kind of forge ahead in my soul's journey. And what played out in the marriage has been so beneficial to who I am as a person and what I now know about myself and the ways that I understand myself in much more depth, and also the way I appreciate just really relationships in general, all types of relationships, no matter what the labels they have. But I'm really really happy to say that I truly, truly feel my marriage has been a tremendous success. And I don't feel like the tool to measure that is based on the number of years or is based on anything other than how we have grown as people and how we feel about ourselves. And I have grown in ways, in just tremendous, tremendous ways. And it takes a lot of courage too, is what I also want to honor in myself, to move forward with something like this that is such a massive change, and there's so much unknown. Oh my goodness gracious. There is nothing like a divorce to bring up everything to the surface, every possible type of insecurity that we could have in the human experience, whether it's financial, whether it's, romantic, notions and worries and fears of how we'll have future relationships, whether it's, whatever type of insecurity one might have that's sort of laying under the surface. Divorce is a beautiful opportunity to bring that all up so we can look at it. Just like all these things are happening, swirling around us in the outer world, right? Everything we're learning about with race relations, racism, sexism, all the isms, and how grateful I am that, as painful as it is to look into that and see the pain of others in that, and the pain that I feel within it too, within the global issues, the environmental issues, every type of social justice issue, everything. Without seeing it, we cannot heal it. Without actually feeling it and bringing it in, how are we going to know how to show up to bear witness to that and to heal that? And so it's the same thing, I feel, for me in making this courageous decision to move forward with a total, complete change to a marital relationship that I've been married 21 years. That's a long time for me. I know some people have much, much longer under their belts for their marriages. And I don't know what the average is. If anybody knows how many years the average couple stays married, I'm very curious. Because I know that we're at, a 50% divorce rate still, maybe higher. And that doesn't matter either, because all that really matters is what's right for the person, the couple, and the family. And it used to be my belief that to try to avoid divorce at all costs. I had a lot of fears around getting divorced. And I'm still in the process, by the way, of it. It's not complete, but I'm very deep in the process of it. So unbelievable things are happening for me. I've lost a lot of sleep for sure. That's not what's happening for me, by the way. That's just one of the aggravations. Because, when the thoughts get rolling and that track gets running, it can be very over alerting and hard to get into that sleep. So that's why you haven't seen me much doing live streams, because I absolutely recognize when my bandwidth requires me to go more inward. And I think of you sisters all the time, and I want to be in, exchange with you all the time. And I'm sending love and signals to you all the time. And I also know that I have not until tonight really had the energetics to share in the transparent way that I need to share. So I'm coming out tonight in this bigger way, in this more global way. Because as I've said, now all of our family members know, and that's of course priority and important. And my children are doing very well with the news. In fact, it's really rather beautiful how they are stepping up to be of support and love. And some of the fear around telling them too, it was big fear, big fear, because there's this idea that you're ruining their lives, right? This is not necessarily what I was feeling or believing, but the narrative of it was very present. And so it was easy for me to get caught up in that. And when it came time to telling them, I knew all along, I knew that they will be able to weather this news in the best way if I am bringing forward this news in all of the truth that it is, and in the true okayness that it truly is for me. So maybe that was a convoluted way of saying that I knew that how I provided this information to them would be a directly linked, the outcome would be directly linked to that. So if I came with a doom and gloom, I'm so sorry, we're ruining your lives, this isn't fair, we feel terrible, please forgive us, right? Yikes, can you imagine a kid having to hold that? So that's not what I said. And I knew that if I came to it, okay, 8 years. All right. I knew I made it past that average mark. Thank you, Jessica. I just knew that I wanted to celebrate like making it past the average, and who cares really, but we'll take the joy where we can get it. Thank you, girl. And so I got a lot of input with how to tell them. I have an excellent family therapist locally. So if anybody needs a referral, I'm your girl, who helped us to script how to tell the children, because there's a great way to approach it, and then there's some other ways to approach it. And I didn't want to overwhelm them with too much information, and because why, and I didn't want to give them too little, and I didn't want to apply an energy to it that made them feel like they should feel bad if maybe they don't, or maybe they should feel worse than they feel if they were already feeling bad, or what if they already knew that this was the case, and had been feeling it for a while but not saying anything, and then would that be a relief? And then how can we address that? So, right, these are just all the questions, so many questions that come up. And so this therapist helped us to understand, like, you say it, this is how she guided us. You say this in 2 sentences. And she gave us the sentences. And I was the one voted to do the talking. So, and then you fall silent and you allow, because when you bring that kind of shock, and it was a shock to them, they were not in the know. When you bring that kind of news and potentially shock to a person, you want to give them time to let it land and let them absorb it and not kind of crowd them with more details than they want to have. Um, and so we got a lot of help in the preparation leading up to this conversation. And boy, it was a holy conversation. It's beautiful. So I'm really grateful for that. And there's so much support. I'm very lucky for this, for the friendships that I have, for the community that I have, for the work that I do that allows me to sustain these deep levels of connection so that I don't stay in the fluffy, superficial, because I think that would probably just destroy any sense of my truth if I, having to pretend that things are okay. And I don't know if that's what, yeah, that's what I was having to do for a long stretch of time until we were prepared to tell our children. Um, it felt like pretending. And I know, I was telling my sister afterwards that I must, since my children had no idea, I must be a really good actress. And my sister said, "No, Stephanie, what you are good at is maintaining harmony in the face of chaos." And that is true. I am really good at that. I am really good at creating space, sacred, safe, protected space, and holding space for myself and those that I love. And that's why I do what I do. Um, and it was such a relief to have that reflected to me, especially in sharing this kind of news, because there is a feeling of unfairness that I had about it. Like, my kids didn't have an option here, right? This is a decision that's being made and they have to accommodate to it. And I'm not the product of divorce. My parents didn't divorce. And I know it weighed very heavily on me to be the bearer of this and the bringer of this, because I know that so many of my clients, of my friends, of my community, remember everybody. It's one of those things you always remember. So I'm told, like, if your parents did divorce, you never forget the way you learned about it. You never forget how they told you, where you were, what you learned. It's sort of like seeing major news, when the space shuttle exploded or something. Everybody kind of remembers where they were at that point, and you can carry that. And I was worried that I would really mess this up for them, if I said it wrong, or if I brought the wrong energy to it, or if I sounded too upbeat, because the fact is that I know this is in the highest service, and there are moments where I feel upbeat about it. There's all emotions that get stirred up in this process. And then there's moments where I feel very heavy hearted. And then there's moments where I feel so angry, right? This is just part of the process. So I'm grateful that I have the level of support that I do, because it has allowed me to stay really, really present for them, for my children and family, but also for myself. I have been journaling like crazy. I have filled like tons of pages. I am giving myself time for, trying to stay committed to the yoga, the meditation, etc. A lot of it has been outside running, like really kind of needing to move and get energy out of my body. I'm starting to do acupuncture from another amazing local practitioner. If anybody wants a referral, I'm your girl. Because what I realized was I hadn't been able to cry for a long time because I had to, I didn't want to field questions about, Mom, why are your eyes red, or what's wrong? And so I would just get little bits of crying in here and there, but not like the real kind of wailing that I wanted to do. And so last week I went and I got acupuncture, and that moved some of that blocked energy that I'd been like bracing in my body. And that night, I went to my dad's house, which was just empty, just me and a dog. And I just cried and allowed for all of the sounds of a good cry to present themselves. And I just felt finally like some stuff had lifted and moved, which was just perfect, what I needed, perfect timing too, because then the next day comes, and then the next day comes, and it brings all sorts of new challenges. And since we're still in the process, it's a very challenging process. But I want to say one more thing. A treasure that I discovered in this process is called collaborative law. So most divorces in our country are done in a traditional model, and that is litigation. It's through the court. A judge decides for you what they think is the best thing for your family, and you must do it. You basically get your marching orders, from what I understand, and you have very little input into what you would like to see, how you would like things to be distributed regarding financially, or how you want time to be shared with the children, or how you want the co-parenting relationship to go, or how you want all this stuff in traditional litigation goes through the court. And for people who, each hire their own counsel, their own attorneys, you can get caught in this process. We all know people who are, for years, paying your attorney. It's a never-ending process because a lot of attorneys are trained to keep you in the process because they're trying to get the most amount of money, maybe for you, but also maybe for themselves. That's their job. And not all attorneys are like that. No bad rep for attorneys at all. Not making any judgments. I'm just saying that the traditional litigation process oftentimes goes like that. That is not my preference. So I learned about from another soul sister, who, by the way, is a divorce coach for women, helping women come back to their power, their truth, their center during and post divorce. So if you want a referral for her, I'm your girl. And she was the first one that mentioned to me about collaborative divorce. Just the sound of it is awesome, right? Like, who does not want a collaborative divorce instead of a non-collaborative one? So what that means, and it's available, I think, in pretty much every state. What that means is that the people who are on your team, because you hire a team to support you through the process, to support you in staying out of court, so you do not get dragged through the court system, which is very poorly designed to serve families. You stay out of that when you are complete with the process and you have all the agreements in place. Your attorneys draw up the documents, and then they get presented to a judge who signs off on them. So instead of the judge telling you what to do, you propose to the judge, this is what we've decided, this is what we've chosen, it's all in legalese, so it's all good and clean and clear, and they sign it, and you are complete with that. What you get to do when you do it this way, potentially, I know not all of them are the same, is maintain as much goodwill as possible with your soon-to-be ex-partner. You get to together decide what is in the best interest of your children and map that out clearly. You get to, like I said, decide together how the financial agreement is going to work, percentages, et cetera, et cetera. There are certain things that are just generally done, but you are not bound strictly by law when you do the collaborative approach. So you have two neutral parties that you hire on your team. One is a psychologist, and one is a CPA. Of course, you need an accountant on there. And then each person, each partner hires their own counsel. So I have my own attorney that is advising me. So I have somebody who knows the law and the case law and things like that to advise me when I am curious about which decisions make the most sense, or are the most accepted. But I'm not bound by that. But my attorney, will advocate not for me, like speak for me, because I don't need her to do that, because it's a collaborative approach. And you meet together in these meetings, and because of the pandemic, this is all Zoom, sisters. I'm getting divorced by Zoom. Who knew? So we meet on Zoom, and sometimes we do breakout rooms when something needs to be discussed that's of a more intense nature, and we need to have that space to discuss it separately, or just be with our own counsel or whatever. So there's all this flexibility. The team is really committed to keeping us on track. And so if things get a little wonky and we're sort of spinning wheels in a direction that's not productive, they will rein us back in. That's their job, their role. They have specialized training. They are certified in the collaborative process. I honestly cannot highly recommend this enough. If you are going through or considering going through something like this, I find this to be so much more nourishing. Can you imagine saying that word in relation to a divorce? Nourishing and supportive. And that's how I felt by my team. I have felt nourished. I have felt supported. I have felt appreciated. I have felt loved. Okay, this is from my team. Not talking about from my partner, from my team. And so it has been the greatest gift to have found this model to use, instead of people, dragging each other through the mud, which is oftentimes what we hear when people are going through the court process. So one more little amazing thing, just magical thing that happened that I want to share, which is that today during a meeting with the team, I was in a little breakout room just with me and my attorney. And sometimes these are just fun chats that we have as we're waiting for the other team members to work out what they are, to discuss whatever they're discussing, and then come back. And so sometimes she and I will talk about scuba diving, or I don't know, whatever, really, just like you would talk to, make kind of small talk with someone, because I really do like my attorney. By the way, if anyone is looking for a good collaborative law attorney, I'm your gal. I have a referral for you. So we're in this, so she and I are chatting, and she says, wait a minute, is that book behind you? This one. It's called, there it is, Animal Speak. She's like, is that Animal Speak behind you? It's a book basically that gives the spiritual significance and characteristics of all the types of animals. And I bought it for my son and I to go through, because when we see a hawk, or when we see a mouse, or when we see a butterfly or a lizard or an iguana or whatever, there's always something to look up to see why that animal has come to visit you and what the message is that they're saying. And so this book is a really good one for that. So she says, I love that book. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, if you love that book, he also has a deck, I believe, of matching oracle cards, which I do not own. But I said, have you ever heard of oracle cards? And she said, no, because I'm thinking this is not common for most attorneys to know what oracle cards are. I'm thinking that. I could be wrong. So I start to educate her on cards because you guys know I have like 1,000 card decks for everything and every purpose. And I love to do cards with my kids. So I said to her, if you like the animal, book, this is a really good deck of cards for you. And I was telling her how she might have fun doing it with her kids. So I said, I'll show you how it works. So I took the deck out and I said, so it's kind of like random, but nothing's really random. And you can lay all the cards out face down. The point is that you don't see what the card actually says. And you can kind of have your kids wave their hand over the cards or close their eyes or just see where they're directed, where their hand wants to go or where their heart signals them that that's their card for the day. So I said, so I'll just pick my card. We'll see what it says. So you guys are going to love this. So I pick the manatee, okay, which is perfect for so many reasons. Of course, we're in Florida. We love our manatees. But the message of this card is accept the situation as it is rather than fighting to change it. Without going into details, I will tell you that I was definitely in a mode where I was fighting, perhaps, not fighting, literally fighting, but resisting things. That's another wonderful aspect of the divorce process. It will bring out resistance to everything, everything. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's my card for today. Okay. So then I get the book out and I'm like, so then you would read a little bit more about the message of your card. And here's the message. And this is for all of you too. That's why I'm sharing it, because it will resonate with each of you, I imagine, at some level. There are times to fight for what you believe in and times to lay down your sword and surrender. If you or your family were in imminent danger, it would be quite natural to defend yourself by either fleeing or fighting, whether through action or words. Extreme situations may even require extreme measures. There are definitely wrongs to make right, and situations where the spiritual warrior in you must take the lead. Spiritual warrior takes the lead. However, it's not the case here. What will work best for all concerned is for you to surrender and accept things as they are. Yield in order to overcome. Lay down your sword not in defeat or in self-sacrifice, but from a realization that this isn't the fight you want or need to engage in. As the saying goes, choose your battles. This is definitely not one to waste your time and energy on. Say the serenity prayer out loud. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let go of your righteousness and your ego's need for control. By the way, divorce is really good at igniting righteousness and the ego's need for control. And find that peace of mind that you so cherish and have available simply by choosing it. Okay? So, sisters, just to recap, I pulled this card during my time with my attorney today, during a meeting, shared this with her, and she, whose first exposure it was these types of cards, was like, I have the chills, I have the chills, I have the chills. She just kept saying that, I have the chills. And then she claps her hand over her mouth, and she's, because we cannot believe the wisdom of this card and how absolutely perfect it is to this moment. She even had an opportunity. So then we continue on the meeting, and there's whatever discussions and more people coming in, and then whatever. And then at another point, because these meetings can be, a couple hours, at another point, when it was just her and I again alone, and I was struggling with something, how to conceptualize something or which direction I wanted to take with an option, she said to me, I think this is a good time for you to say the serenity prayer again. I couldn't make this up. This is why I say I have never felt so supported. It is so powerful to be in this incredible experience, as heartbreaking and challenging and grief filled and maddening as it is, then these magical things are happening. And I'm having spiritual conversations with my divorce attorney, with my collaborative divorce attorney. So it just goes to show you never know, right? This is why we take the time to align ourselves, to take charge of the inner landscape, to to heal, to address, to cultivate, to oh, nourish, to love, to self-love, all of that, because it makes space for these very opportunities. Who would have thought? So that's my story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. I absolutely welcome all the love and the energy and the compassion, um, and the visioning of a whole and healed, complete process, um, and the beauty of what's to come moving forward. I totally appreciate and accept any energy you send my way. And thank you, sisters. I'm sending you all so much love.